Sisters, if y'all have any questions, please send your questions over. You can write them down and send them over, or you can send them over to one of the kids, inshallah.
Sheikh, a couple of weeks back, when you made this statement, majority of the ulama said.
Okay.
Go ahead, take it.
So the statement of the majority of the ulama, most of the scholars say, most of the jurists say, most of the four imams say, etc., etc. What does that mean, or what weight does that hold, etc., etc., etc.? In general, for the majority of the people of knowledge to adopt this view, that means something. No doubt about that. It has its importance and it has its weight. It has its oomph, its force. But under any circumstance, does it automatically necessitate that it is the correct and most strongest view? It does not mean that. Also, a person has to be very careful in quoting the majority, because oftentimes people, they become very sloppy. They say it is the majority when in actuality it's not the majority. Or some people, they say the majority and it's a small margin. So if we had 10 people in a room and it was 6-4, 6 is more than 4, correct? But it's not like 8-2, 9-1. So some wields that, 9 out of 10, man. 9 out of 10 is not 6 and 4. There's a difference. So many people, they sloppily quote majority, let alone in which it was 5-5. It's not even the case. It was a split decision. It wasn't the majority. So many people, they lazily or sloppily quote majority, claim majority, and there's some who lazily and sloppily quote unanimous decision. How is it a unanimous decision? He won the fight, split decision, bro. It wasn't a unanimous decision, let alone a knockout. It wasn't just, he just had his way. The judges, they looked at it differently. So some people say, all scholars say this, and that's not true. Most of the scholars say this, that's not true. There's several scholars who took a different approach. Several, right? So if it's accurately quoted, then it means something, but it does not mean that it's the absolute truth. And strongest, correct, those words are always relative. What's the strongest opinion? According to who? How you see it. I pronounce it potato, you pronounce it potato. Who say this is right and that's wrong, right? So it depends, and personalities are not to be used as weapons. It's a big problem, a big, huge problem that we suffer from in the United States and outside the United States, weaponizing Islamic personalities. And the truth is never, ever determined by a personality. And that's a principle that the scholars have mentioned. لَيْسَ الْحَقُّ يُعْرَفُ بِالرِّجَالِ وَلَكِنَّ الرِّجَالَ يُعْرَفُونَ بِالْحَقِّ. The truth isn't determined by men and personalities. The personalities are determined by the truth. So weaponizing it, Ibn Taymiyyah, Abu Hanifa, for that. No. It's disrespectful. And those scholars, they warned us of blindly following or just taking their statements fanatically and using it as swords against someone's opponent. And that's exactly what has happened to so many different groups. So that's what I would say with regards to the majority of the ulama. It is not the same as consensus. It is important. And if a person is making an argument, this is the proof, that's the proof, I have this hadith, and on top of all of that proof, it was the view of the... So that means something, but it isn't automatically 100%. Wallahu ta'ala alam. That's in brief.
Sheikh, so when you talk about this, like what you just said, the weaponizing of personalities, and we go back to the hadith of the 72 sects and the 73 sects, and we take that with the Prophet ﷺ saying that my ummah would never go wrong with the majority.
La, there's no hadith that states that. My ummah will never agree upon misguidance. La tajtami'u ummati ala dhalala. But the majority doesn't state that. Okay, read the... Wait, I think you got Jack for your question for the Quran.
Oh, I apologize.
Bismillah. Allah, sisters first.
Now, I wanted to know about foster care.
Okay.
I understand that adoption things, but relative to foster care and then perhaps fostering the children into adoption, is that permissible or is there any stipulations?
Understood. Well, first and foremost is, inshallah, this Thursday, the 29th of September at 9:30 p.m., we have a monthly lecture, a workshop devoted just to this topic, adoption, in light of Quran and Sunnah. And you can, there's not going to be, it isn't a public lecture. It's an exclusive workshop. You can sign up for that on HadithDiscipleshop.com. HadithDisciple, HadithDiscipleshop.com. HadithDiscipleshop. HadithDiscipleshop.com. We're going to be discussing that in full detail, the ins and the outs of adoption in Islam. That's first and foremost. To give you a brief answer now, a Muslim is allowed to engage in certain types of fosterage or fostering. Just like a Muslim is allowed to engage in some types of adoption, quote unquote. A lost child, a child that has no provider, no father, no mother, you take them under your wing. You raise them, you protect them, you educate them, you feed them. That is a type of adoption linguistically, but that's not the same as a person adopting legally. It says, my son that is privy to inheritance, my blood daughter from my loins, this is now your brother. You shake hands, you can hug, you can be alone with each other. You can lie. No, that's different. So there's some aspects of adoption or fostering which are totally prohibited in Islam. Prohibited. It cannot be done. And then there are other aspects of fostering or adopting which are mandatory, such as a child is just lost and left an orphan in the streets, been abandoned by the parents. Someone has to take care of the child, let alone I can take the child and raise them as a Muslim and treat them fairly and be just to them. But at the same time, no matter how just you try to be, no matter how fair you try to be, my step is nothing personal, but this is not my son. You are not my son. I am not your father. You can call me father, but it's not the same. You're not from my loins. We're not of the same blood. It's a difference. It doesn't mean you have to treat them wrong. You have to oppress them, but there are rules of Allah and His Messenger. All right? And there are different ways around that. If you had a son from a young age, and when he becomes a man, do you have to cover up in front of him? You can't give him a hug. You can't give him a kiss. There are ways around that in the Quran and Sunnah with regards to breastfeeding. This young boy was there for me. He's more loyal to me than my own blood son. He's more respectful to me than my own blood son. He is carrying on my legacy more than my own blood son. I have all of his wealth. When I die, he can't get any of it. There are ways around that as well, but we do not say he inherits like my son from my wahakadha, all right? So there are certain things that are lawful, and there are certain things which what? Which are not lawful. But the general answer is that you are allowed to foster a child, to take them in, to be their guardian, their caretaker on paper if you have to. And if there's a legal issue in which you have to put on paper my son for legalities, that's one thing. All right? And Allah knows best.
Yeah, mashallah. The other point that I want to make about that is relative to siblings. If there's, a sister and a brother, they're mine, like 5, 7.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, I apologize. Is that better?
Yes.
I said relative to the age and relative to the children itself. If there's siblings, a sister and a brother, they're not Muslim, but they're siblings. Relative to raising them up, they're not Muslim, but covering around them and then as they get
Understood. Well, if the child is not from your lineage, if the child is not your husband's son, your stepson or stepdaughter, etc., then he's not a mahram for you, you're not a mahram for them. And if the person is not your mahram, you're not their mahram, there are rules. Being alone with them, traveling with them, touching them seeing you uncovered. So in order to establish that mahramhood or that mahramship, that's why I said there are different ways, different things that can be done. So a woman, for argument's sake, there's someone who's lost, a boy on the street, literally, in the middle of the street, it's raining, he's crying, he's hungry, cold, dirty. You pick him up, you clean him up, you wash him up, you put him in your house. He doesn't know where his parents are. A war-torn country. Or like in a movie, right? They just drop a baby off at the doorstep in a basket. And this is real life. It can happen. You walk outside, you hear the baby crying. Oh, this poor baby. It's cold. You take the baby inside. You raise the baby. Now the baby is 10, 12. The baby is a man now. He's 14. He's in puberty. He's not the same baby. Can he call you mother? Can he touch you? Can you give him a hug? Can you travel with him? He's like my son. I raised him from day one. Not necessarily until certain things are done. And from those things is suckling the child. Once the child drinks a certain amount of breast milk in a certain period of time, the child is now forbidden for you, so on and so forth. So there, as I said, the details have to be explained point by point, inshallah.
Okay, and the sibling, one of the main things, if the husband's in the house, relative to her children.
You guys sign up on Thursday, inshallah.
Okay.
All right? 9:30, right?
10 o'clock.
Inshallah, 9:30. See you there. But then you get all that. Okay?
Make dua for the woman.
Ameen. May Allah bless him. Any other questions from the sisters? Khalas. Now, what are you saying, Furqan?
About the 72, the 73 sects. Now, when we talk about that, and we talk about the weaponization of that hadith, and the split that they use, that some people use for the hadith that is sometimes is detrimental to the community, to different jamaats. So, is that 73 sects, or the one that's going to be, or the one they say that is going to be saved, is that the majority?
Understood.
Anybody said it was a majority, or
Clear. That the hadith regarding the Muslims splitting into 73 sects, this ummah, and what's meant by al-jama'ah, or one version of the hadith says, hiya ma kana alayhi al-yawma ana wa ashabi. All right? And FYI, the narration that says hiya al-jama'ah is more authentic than the version that says that which is upon which me and my companions are upon today. Al-jama'ah, that version is far sounder than the other version. What's important is, let's just stick with the word jama'ah that we read. There are different meanings and usages of the word jama'ah. Just like Allah says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold fast the rope of Allah collectively and don't separate yourselves. What's meant by hablullah, the rope of Allah? What's meant by that? Abu Bakr and Umar, Islam in general, the Quran, what's meant by the rope of Allah? So any text can be weaponized. We are the saved sect, my group, not your group. Even if you say and believe the same thing that I say and believe in. But we have a political issue, or financial issue, or racial issue, or you're older or you're younger, we splintered off. Our masjid is the Jama'ah, the saved sect. So any text can be weaponized. Regardless of the interpretation, any text can be abused. In the Quran, someone says, this is the rope of Allah. My association is the rope of Allah. HadithDisciple.com is the rope of Allah. Hadith Disciple is the Jama'ah. And no other, anybody can weaponize it and can abuse it. So the proof has to be in the pudding. For you to claim that this is the proper way, the correct way, this is the proper group, what's inside? Let's read the ingredients. The knowledge, the practice, the behavior, the fruit of your dawah, the results. As a wise man once said, no matter how beautiful one's strategy is, he should often look at the results. No matter how lovely it sounds, let's just look at how many victories you have of this beautiful strategy, this business plan. It's so, okay, how many chains do you have of your restaurant? Can I see them? How much money are you making out of them? What are you bringing in? Let's look at the results of it. So this is going to be the mizan. That's going to be the scale, not a person claiming. And the general rule is that anyone who's claiming and monopolizing and saying that it's just me and nobody else, that's strike number one. Inviting, calling, welcoming people versus abusing and weaponizing and looking down upon people. So that already is a red flag, right? In the sunnah, as we said before, the correct way, the jama'ah is warm and aromatic. It smells good, it feels good, it's welcoming, you feel it. It's not something which is offensive and pushing people away and running people away and scattering people away. And it's warm and it's aromatic, not based off of gimmicks. It's another very important point. Many people, they have gimmicks. Their dawah is based off of gimmicks. Makeup, cameras, money, this, that. It's a gimmick versus the actual content. What's inside? What's it made of? What is it actually calling you to? So that's dangerous. Weaponizing it, abusing it, claiming, monopolizing it is extremely dangerous. Many people have done it in America and outside of America. What's important is there are things that we can clearly say, there's no doubt about it, this is it, no doubt about it, clear. And there are other things which are subjective. And the different groups of Muslims, they have different things with them that other groups don't have. So here at this masjid, we're all Muslim, but here at this masjid, we focus on politics and finances and organization. And no doubt, that's a part of Islam. That's a part of the deen. The Muslims are supposed to be politically straight. They're supposed to be economically what? Straight. They're not supposed to be poor and hungry and needy. Things are supposed to be together. And at another masjid, we just focus on the spirituality of Islam. The dhikr, tawbah, one's heart, softening the heart. How are we going to eat? How are we going to live? How are we going to travel to make hajj? Allah will provide, brother. That's not really important. Let's just focus on the spirit. Okay, no problem. And in another masjid, another dawah organization, they say and they claim we focus on knowledge, learning what's correct, memorizing, studying, teaching. But the economic, financial, organization, political is the spirituality of that ilm, of that knowledge is what? And then the fourth congregation, they say the Muslims have to fight. Jihad is obligatory. The Muslims have to stand up for the truth. They have to defend the truth. They have to propagate the truth. They have to spread the truth, etc., etc., etc. So all of these different four groups, they all have a piece and a slice of what? The pie of Islam. So what group can claim that they're implementing and practicing and propagating all of that balanced? That's difficult. Wallahu ta'ala alam. That's in brief, obviously. Khair, inshallah. If there are no other questions, we'll stop. Maybe we'll take a few from online, inshallah. Just khair, inshallah. We'll stop here. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.